Welcome to another episode, Live from the Heart podcast. Today, this is a very special episode with a very special guest. Thank you very much, Kamal, for accepting to be a guest. Kamal Ravikant, you've changed my life in a beautiful way
Wow.
because I've been using your practice, the breathing. I love myself a lot
hmm
to release the
hmm
past few weeks, and
hmm
I've loved it. And I want to say that your book is really amazing. So I'm going to talk about the book Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It, but you've written also other books that I intend to read. And
hmm
thank you for shining your light in the world and helping others reconnect with who they truly are, their essence and their magic. Because as you say, when you love yourself, life loves you back.
It
And
does.
this is
Yeah.
a powerful message.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
please introduce yourself for those who don't know you?
Oh, well, that's interesting. Who am I? I'm a guy who lives life and works hard on his mind and his inner self and is always trying to figure out what this whole show is about and what this, if I could, I would literally just spend my entire time trying to figure out the nature of reality. But in that process, I've also been an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley and a venture capitalist, and I've been in the U.S. Army. I've done a bunch of stuff, and so learned a lot of lessons along the way, most of them by making mistakes, and Love Yourself came out of really the book itself came out of a really dark time, and I never set out to write this book, even though I trained for years to be a literary fiction writer. I wanted to write the great American novel. I didn't want to write the great American self-help book. Trust me, I was not that guy. And but in that dark time, I made a commitment to myself, and I got out of it. And in by working my inner self, and I came up with a practice that I was doing just in my inner self, and it changed things for me really really fast. First internally, then externally, which I found really surprising. It's like well, you're like, oh, life kind of responds to this, what happens inside, and uh, and then I started sharing with friends, and it just really helped them. And then I got kind of like cajoled into writing the book, and I put it out, and it kind of became took off and became a thing of its own. And I was terrified about putting it out. I was a Silicon Valley CEO who'd failed publicly, and here I was like, yeah, I love myself now, everything's cool. I saved myself. Like, come on. But the interesting thing is, here's the irony of when you are scared of putting your real self out to the world, because through the book, I put my real self out to the world, right? I've I've been in private events where you'll have like I'll give you one example. Like there'll be like a Fortune 50 CEO that everyone's like crowding around. This guy is like very well known in the industry. And usually when that happens, I'm the one who's away from the crowd. I'm like the least fanboy of anybody, except writers. I'm fanboys of like writers who changed my life. And um, and he came up to me and he's like, "Oh, you're Kamal, you're Kamal, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, you're Naval Ravikant's brother." I'm like, "Yeah." In tech, I get that a lot. And he's like, "Oh, you wrote that book, Love Yourself, Like Your Life Depends." I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Last year, that book really helped me." And I know what that company was going through last year. I mean, it went through like a big thing, and I was like, "Wow, well, thank you." It's amazing. And then I'll get emails from like 16-year-old girl from Ukraine or this and that. It's like it's great. It's amazing. Like the men, veterans to old women, and there's when I say old, I mean like older. Sorry, like 80s. Like for the first time, I'm loving myself. Thank you, young man. I love those. I love those. Thank you, young man. Like I got that one recently. It was so sweet, and it's amazing. That's like the lesson, the main lesson for me was, and actually I need to maybe step up more now because I kind of a pretty private guy. I was like, when you put your real self out to the world, and not because you're trying to do anything. In fact, I thought I was going to destroy my career with that book, but I was doing it because it was literally changing lives and then saving lives, right? Um, I did it for that. So I didn't do it for me. I did it for that, and it changed my life. Like it put me on the map as a writer. Here I was like struggling as a literary fiction writer on the side while I was doing startups, right? And now like publishers were chasing me. I ended up being published by HarperCollins, the version you read, and when they published my other books, it was like, oh, we see what you can do, right? And but all of that came from me taking that risk of looking like complete fool and then having to start a new industry, like, and instead it put me also, even in tech, it put me in a higher plane where like I went off and I raised a venture fund, and I have people who are like investors in my fund who told me that they're investors because they read my book and they're like, you're the kind of man I want to invest with. Like, you know, I've met founders who tell me that, which is really cool, you know. So
This
it's
is
been it's been
beautiful.
yeah, it's been life changing for me. And all I did was like, look, what I did do with the book was I gave it everything. It wasn't like something because like for me, the craft of writing is truly special. Books saved my life, changed my life when I was a kid, right? Books were my refuge, right? And so for me, it is there's a purity to it. So I worked so hard to keep every word pure. And I wrote and I rewrote and I rewrote, and there's all these endless nights of just you and the blank page, and you're just trying to get the words out right and slashing and cutting and slashing. Hemingway said, "Writing's in the rewriting." And God knows how many drafts I wrote and rewrote and rewrote until every word was right. And I really felt like, okay, now I was giving a gift to the world. What it would do was its own thing, but I was putting out my gift to the world. Um,
Yeah.
but I was terrified. Each time you do that, I don't think it gets easier, honestly. You know, um, but man, when you do it with that kind of intention, the world responds, and you get far more than you imagine. That's been a very interesting lesson, right? You get far. It's that book has helped me out in my career in tech and just like other things, and just also just as a writer, and also just like I'll be in airports, how people come up to you. You're like I'm like yeah. And they're like, oh, this book, and they'll give me a hug, and it's like, oh my god, like it's amazing. It's like the only the lesson I would want to pass along to you is like, look, that was my truth in the moment. I was literally all I do was I sharing my truth in a craft that I cared about. Whatever your craft is, it could be TikTok videos. I don't really care. Whatever your craft is, it could be sing, whatever. Put out your truth. Just put it out. Because here's the thing: we all we're all lonely in our heads. We're all walking around our human journeys, thinking this is the hardest. This is mine. And when you start to see other people who possibly admire or even not, who are just human beings, and you see that, oh, they're doing it too, and then you learn the lessons from them on how not to how to improve. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I think we all almost have a responsibility. Like you want to make the world a better place, right? Well, how you make a world a better place is you transform human beings. You transform human beings, the world transforms. And how do you transform human beings? By sharing the truth. How you became better in whatever it was. How you became disturbed, but it's still coming through. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. It works. What comes to me is that this is the greatest adventure, and you're an adventurer. But I feel that this depth going inside, going inward,
Yeah.
and really opening up new doors from inside is the
Uh-huh.
greatest adventure of all. And it takes a lot of courage, and courage comes from cœur in French. This is the rage connected to the heart, which brings a lot of energy from the heart space. And
Mm.
when I hear your
Yeah, yeah.
story and when I hear what you're doing, what comes to me is that we can only take people where we've been. And you've been to a place which is so beautiful, where I think the whole humanity would like to live. And you're showing them that there is a way. And for me, this is why also people trust you, and why it also
Yeah, I mean, look,
improved
it's
or
so,
heightened
somehow I
your
luckily stumbled
career and
upon
everything,
loving
because this is
myself,
where everybody
and
wants to
I
live,
really
isn't
do
it?
feel like I've written the only practical manual on how to love yourself. That as far as I know, right? It's very no nonsense. There's no frou-frou in it. It's very, and now I can say it's been proven by so many people across the world. And yeah, and it's just, you know, as human beings, all we can do is if we could share our human lessons with others, that's it. Share your human lessons. And but the most amazing thing is I found is by sharing, you will become better. So it's almost like do it selfishly. If you're scares you, because a lot of people are scared of to write the book, to create the
Mhm.
art, putting it out, right? But understand that fear is normal. Every artist goes through that. Every artist has always gone through that. Like, um, But it's a matter of stepping beyond that. And that's where the magic is. That's where magic happens, right? Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've listened to the audiobook and I felt very close to you because just listening to your voice and your vulnerability, sharing your stories,
Yeah, yeah,
this is where the magic happens, really, because we have different stories, but we have the same kind of wounds and we are connected in the same kind of way that we can transcend them and we can just make the most of what we got. And I feel that this is what it's all about, stopping um, relating to the past in a way that it happened to us and we were victims, and we can actually do anything at any time
yeah,
of
yeah,
life, whatever age
yeah,
we are, to transcend it and really become, I would say, powerful,
yeah.
because we
I
have
know.
so
Yeah,
much power
yeah,
and we just forget
yeah.
about it. And
Yeah,
I
that's very
guess we're
true.
also
That's very
afraid of
true.
the
I remember with the
responsibility
first
that
success of
comes
this
with this
book,
power.
I kind of hid.
Because
I'm like, I'm just
when
a
we take
regular guy. I don't
ownership,
know what people expect
yeah,
from me, you know? Like, and honestly, people weren't expecting anything. They were expecting the regular guy who wrote this book, who was just honest, you know? But there is power. Absolutely right. There is power. There's also responsibility, you know, and the responsibility is if you put this work out to the world, you got to be living it. That is a rule I have for
yeah,
myself. I don't put anything out unless I'm 100% living it. I may fall, but I will always get myself back up. Like if I'm
yeah,
not living something, I can't write about it in the moment. I will literally go live it for a while before I allow myself to write it. That's my rule. Because then the words are true, you know, and people can feel it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah, totally.
Oh,
This is
true.
self
Yeah, yeah,
leadership,
yeah.
because if you can just lead your life, then you're a true leader, because you are, yeah, you got it. And then people feel you. This is coherence. I feel that if you're living this way, you're coherent and people can feel your vibe, and it just gives a different, yeah, it's just a different experience, because I guess a lot of people today are very
Hmm.
distracted and not really focused on who they really want to be. And when you meet someone who's actually doing the work and walking the talk every day, it changes everything. It's very inspiring to keep doing it. And actually, that's a question I had for you, which is, when you don't see any improvement, when you start this
Mhm.
work and when you start doing the practices as you offer them in the book, and you don't
That's a
see
great question.
differences
How did
yet,
I stay
you don't
committed?
see that things are
Right. So I will
shifting
tell you how I
around
stay
you,
committed.
how do you stay
Because when
committed?
I was so miserable, a really dark place, and what I did was I decided I wrote myself a vow, and and what I was, you know, I thought I was a very in the moment. I'm like, it's like I'm sick of this. I'm done. I'm done. I'm sick of feeling like this. I'm sick of being in my head. I hate this. Who I am in my head. I just hate, I need this to change. I'm done. I sat down and wrote this vow in that moment. I thought the vow was going to be like, you know, wow, I'm going to be better. Wow, I'm going to be awesome. And the vow came out to be about all about loving myself. I don't know where that came from. It did not come from the conscious mind. I promise you that. Okay. But because I wrote that vow on a piece of paper in front of me, I'm a big believer in commitments. You know, you want to change your life, get really good at making commitment, keeping commitments to yourself, right? You will transform your life. And for me, a vow is almost like commitment. Is like the ultimate commitment. You know, like they call it a marriage vow, or like you know, they call it serious things, vows, right? And it's for me, like if you wrote it down in the moment of just pure, just you and the life, that's almost like a commitment between you and whatever this whole show is, right? And so I was like, shit, now I gotta, excuse my language, but like now I gotta figure this out. I gotta live this. And so that's what stopped me from because then I was just trying to figure out how to do it. How do I change my inside so it becomes loving towards myself naturally? You know, it becomes like a whole just a natural way of being. Like I didn't go read any books on it, you know, like I didn't go watch any YouTube or anything. I was just like miserable and I was just figuring this out for myself because I only cared about I wasn't doing this to write a book at the time. I was doing this purely to save myself. So that was it. It was just, you know, the experiment of n equals one. It was just one sample size, whatever worked in my head and my heart. I kept what didn't, I kept throwing out. Um, and so that's what kept me going was the vow. And that's why, like, a part of the book is like I talk about the importance, like, if you're going to do this, make that vow to love yourself. And here's how I did it. Here's how you could do it. Then every day, look at that vow, look at that commitment. You know, you're going through your day anyway. Why not make your inside a better place to be? You're still stuck in your inside anyway. Your worst case scenario is you just start feeling really good about yourself. And it obviously it takes time because some of us, have hated ourselves or hated things about ourselves for so long. Especially those of us who've been through childhood stuff and you carry that and you make that your identity, and then you see it causing effects in your life that cause more drama, more trauma. So it's like it's hard, but like those are the patterns we have. So what you're doing is you're putting in one clear pattern of self-love. And it's going to take a little while because you have these old deep patterns. And to realize that, look, I'm a human being. It's okay. Like this doesn't like you don't look up in Wikipedia, see the word perfect and see a photo of any of us, right? It's like no such thing. We're humans, right? And um, that it's just a matter of doing it, doing it. It's like going to the gym, like if you've been overweight and eating bonbons all your life and just watching TV, no exercise, you go to the gym first week and you're like, oh, I didn't lose 30 pounds, like it. It's like day by day by day, and the shifts happens, and then all of a sudden you just start dropping the weight. The mind is just like that. The mind is very plastic, and it's very interesting. Like the mind also can snaps back, just like the body. Like, I mean, you could get Mr. Olympia fit, but then go eat bonbons for a year and not do any exercise. What's going to happen, right? The mind does that faster, which is why I think I've really come to believe the most important thing I could do in my life is work on my mind because it controls everything. I could be in the greatest moment, but be miserable. Or I could be the most miserable moment and be great. It's all my mind. So I just work on my mind. I work on my mind. I work on my, and you know what the irony is? And this is where you get, I mean, I really have come to experience this so much. It's like, how people use the word synchronicity and so forth. When I'm doing this, synchronicities are my way of being. Like, it's just how my life works. I could tell you so many things that have happened, they just work. Things just start to work. And it's like, oh, so there is something about as within, so without. So if the more I come to learn that, more I realize, oh my God, if I want my life to be great, my inside has to be great. That is my responsibility. That is the only true responsibility I have. And what that does is it also makes me better for everything. So I really, really like if I was to write Love Yourself Today, I would just spend half the book hammering this point. Was like, look, just trust me on this. And people reach out because I use the word magic in the book and I talk a little bit about it because I don't want the book to be about that. Because I'm like, because I know that if someone's doing this work, they'll experience it, they'll figure it out. And I get a lot of emails. Oh, I get it. Oh, I understand what you mean by magic. Oh, yeah, the magic is happening. There you go. My job was to get people to go on the path of loving themselves, or then just the wheel starts turning and their life starts changing. You know, but I've really come to believe this. I think that is the true responsibility is work on the inner self. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Do you know EFT? Emotional Freedom Technique? Yeah. About 10 years ago, when I discovered EFT, I went into it because I had a lot of anxiety and I was just very much afraid of everything.
Oh,
And I did a lot of tapping, and it starts with, even if I feel, I love and accept myself. And I did that so much. I was tapping every single day. And listening to your book, I understand now this was the beginning of the journey of loving myself. And I thought it was more the tapping or more the letting go of the emotions, which was great
wow.
also. But the loving myself part, I think was a big deal. And this
Uh-huh.
was the beginning about
Yeah,
10 years ago.
yeah.
And today I have a life that, I mean, I became a millionaire. I just followed my heart. Like I followed my heart, and it's just, and doors opened up too. And I'm amazed at what we can create when we really
Mm,
tune into the
mm.
power of connecting to the heart and believing that we're worthy of love and of
Why
anything
would
that
have them? Yeah,
we.
bingo.
I believe when
I've
we
learned
have
that too.
dreams,
I've learned
we
that
are
too.
meant
And
to
we're not.
achieve them, because
Uh-huh.
otherwise we wouldn't have them. We would have other dreams. Exactly. Yeah. But if we don't believe in them,
Yeah, you're not
we're
doing
not
the world
going
any
for them. We
favors by
don't do
not
it.
going
We
for
don't
your
write the
dreams.
book. We don't
You're not
do
doing
the
your loved ones
therapy.
any
We don't,
favors. You're not doing anyone
we
any
don't do it.
favors. Um, it's not easy though. It
Yeah.
requires, a lot of internal. You have to overcome a lot of internal challenges.
Yeah.
Um, but my God, the world is full, the history is full of
I
people
know.
who have, you know, um, and people, like, whatever we think we've gone through that's horrible, go read a little bit. You start reading a little bit of human history, you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I don't live at that time. Like what we go through is like charmed lives, compared to what human beings used to go through. But yet it's for us, because it's us, it's so personal. It seems so, and I'm just speaking from my experience, it seems so overwhelming. Um, which is why it's the human mind, right? The heart hasn't changed. Human mind and heart hasn't changed for humanity. So the basics, like loving yourself or forgiveness, and these basics are fun. They're the fundamental um, part of us that we need to actually really focus on, because they change everything. Forgiveness lets you drop the load. It's amazing when you do forgiveness. Like the
Yeah.
forgiveness, like I said in the book, like so many people reach out to me, like, you just drop a load. You're like,
Um,
oh, things were heavy. It's really funny. You realize I didn't need it. I didn't need it. You know, and this is a lesson. Sorry, go ahead. No, please.
yeah.
I would say, and this is a lesson I continue to learn for myself again and again. It's like,
What would you say?
um,
Sorry. No, go ahead.
and I sometimes wonder if this is what the
That
whole thing is, just a spiral towards more and more love. And maybe that's what it is. Who knows? I'm working on it.
I think it is. What would you say to someone who would say, "Okay, Kamal could do it, and Claire
Oh,
is on her way to do it too,
yeah. Oh
and
God, if you,
but
oh
I'm
yeah, yeah.
unique in a way
If
that
you
I
hadn't met
cannot
the
do
Kamal
it."
who did
You
this,
know how
he would have
people
said
are,
that to
that
you.
they
In fact,
believe
I
in
didn't
their
even believe in the word
uniqueness,
love.
but in
That's
their
how bad I was. Like I was like,
uniqueness in
God,
the
I believe
wrong
in love,
way.
blah blah blah. Like it's not a matter of believing. It's like, look, if you ever hang out with a
Hmm.
baby, babies are wired for love. Like puppies, whatever. Babies are wired for love. It's part of a fundamental wiring. And so I think, like, so unless you're saying I don't have the fundamental wiring of every human being who's ever lived, that's pretty unique. But unless you're that, we're wired for it. And what we do is we build up all these gunk and all these doors and armor and all these things that come along the way. But most of the time, the sword, the spikes are sticking inwards. It's like, the way I've treated myself in my mind most of my life, it's horrible. And I think about the way I treat myself now, how, like, just how I love myself. I really do love myself. I'm like, I'm in love with myself. I just like enjoy myself. And it's like, versus, and even my faults, I realize I work through them, and I don't hold them against myself. You know, to be in that place, I'll tell you, it's a very human place, just as it is to be doing the opposite and hating yourself, and to always be beating yourself and feeling bad about yourself. They're both equally available. Which one would you rather have? It's your journey, and you have the wiring for it. And trust me, Kamal was not the guy. I think, which is one of the reasons why this book does so well, because it's so honest, written by a guy who was not that guy. You know, excuse me, like, yeah, I know, which I still find pretty comical. Just looking back, maybe that's why I became that guy, because I never wanted to be that guy. you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, people have reached out to me, but this, but this, but that, right? Which is one of the reasons why
I
I
guess
shared
so. Yeah.
some of my childhood in the book. And look, I'm a pretty private person. I don't need the world to know what I went through as a child. I've worked through it, right? In fact, my mom doesn't know. She hasn't read the book yet. Like, she would be mortified, horrified. I mean, it would break her heart, you know. But I have a reason. Like,
Ah,
she refused to read my books unless I give her a copy. So I haven't given a copy of the book yet. Because I. But why did I do it? Why did I take that risk? Because I know that, look, people need to know they're not alone. People need to know. Okay, so, but I went through this. Well, oh, this guy did too. But I went through that. But this guy too. Like, so at least I could give some of
yes.
that. Like, people, we need to understand we're not alone. We're not alone in our journey. We're not the only one experiencing this. And someone who's experienced this journey has gone on to be amazing, right? Why not be you?
Yeah.
It's just as equally possible. It's the human mind. You got the same human mind that that person has or had.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. I'm also a very private person, and every time I share something which is very personal, I always have so many
Mm.
messages from people thanking me for actually getting out of my own way and sharing about it, like the death of my mother, or how I made money, things which are a little bit more uncomfortable than the rest of what I'm allowing myself to share. Every time people can relate and people can connect in a
Hmm.
place that really so important. I think I forget sometimes because I went to therapy, and for me it's normal to
Mm.
talk about what's happening, but for a lot of people
Yeah,
it's not, and this is
yeah,
the
it
way they
is.
heal.
The only thing I would add to
And
that
by
is,
sharing what
I mean,
happened
you
to
do
us,
this
it's very
already.
healing
I
to
I did
others
some
too. This is
research
so
on you when you asked me
important.
to be on your podcast.
Yeah.
Like I said, I only say yes to people I find interesting, right? It's like but it's important to not just share what happened. What's the most important part is the lessons, how you got better. That's what's really important. And if you don't have it, well, go get better and share it. You know, there you go. You know, it's really, like years ago, I saw Maya Angelou speak. I was a huge Maya Angelou fan. Her poetry is just incredible. And her presence, that woman, oh my God, the presence. I used to have this fantasy. I would just like to just lie there with my head in her lap and her just like pet my hair and read me poetry. I used to have this fantasy of Maya Angelou, right? Like she was incredible. She was incredible. And and so we're in this big
Yeah.
auditorium,
I
and
get
she's
it.
speaking. And I never forgot this. This was a very long time ago, maybe right after college or something. And she said, thousands of years ago, a Roman poet wrote, "I'm a human being, therefore nothing human is foreign to me." And I remember that when I was writing that book, and part of like the genesis of writing that book actually came from that quote. Because if it works for this one man who's got that human mind, I'm betting it'll work for others who have that human mind. And now it's been proven, right? And it's the same for all of us, like all of this, the magic, the lessons, and everything available to all of us. But we have to do the work. That no one can do for you. That is the work. No one can do it for you. No one, no matter how much they hold your hand, the inner work you got, it's you.
You do.
But it's so worth it. You know, it's so worth it because like, why not? You're stuck in your head anyway, right? Why not make it a great place to be?
It is. Yeah.
Why don't you share the one? Why don't you share your favorite one?
Do you want to share one practice
Mm-hmm.
with the people listening to us?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have two. So one of them is breathing I love myself, breathing in I love myself, and letting go of everything that's not love, or just letting
Mm-hmm.
go, just the effort of letting go, the release. And then the other one, and I do that 10 times. So I do it in the shower, I do it brushing my teeth, I do it before going to bed, waking up in the morning, on the scooter in Bali, just all those things. And then the other one is asking myself the question, if I really loved myself, what would I do? Who would I be
Mm-hmm.
in this moment? And
Yeah.
that's a great
Yeah.
light when I'm in the dark. It's like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
Then
That
I get the
question is
answer.
amazing.
It's really
It's like in
helpful.
any
So
moment,
I would say
because
these
the
are the two
secret to
ones
that
that
question is the
I
word
take with
if.
me.
Because I was doing it for myself, right? So I came with a question because it was still my mind. If I said because I love myself, or my mind would say, no, you don't. Who are you to love yourself? My mind would throw all these things. So I come with if. One can't argue with that. If it's hypothetical, if I love myself, and I made it like very truly and deeply with all my heart, wanting only the very best for myself, what would I do in this moment? What choice would I make? So I use that for like moments when I have to make choices, or like I was in a conflict over it, like experiencing conflict with people.
Yeah.
To even like, would I choose to let myself feel bad if I truly love myself? You know. So that was great. And then the secret of that question is just that statement, that if statement. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Mm.
I think today it's not so difficult to make a difference in the world because so many people are not doing the work. And when I look at this question, I'm thinking, if you want to make the extra mile and really succeed in your business or have
Yeah,
a great
yeah.
relationship or just be a light in the world, just carry this question and you will always do the extra mile, because you cannot just say, oh, I've done enough. No, if I
Mm,
really love myself, I honor the life that flows through me. And I go do this. I go write the book. I do the thing that I'm
very
meant
much
to
so.
do.
Yeah, thank you for
And I
reminding me.
own
That
it.
question is great. I
And
haven't used it in a
it,
while.
it,
But you know,
it,
interesting,
it builds
if you
up
use
the
this stuff
courage,
enough,
I feel.
it starts to become an automatic pattern.
Yeah.
That's also the magic of this work, right? It's internal, it's repetitive, it involves feeling and some visualization, but very basic, right? And it becomes like it just gets wired in you. That you just naturally, after a while, you're like, oh, I'm making those choices that I would if I asked myself that question anyway. Yeah, but it's a good one. Thank you for reminding me. I need to like start thinking consciously again. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, ask away. Hmm.
Can I ask you another question, which is a little bit more about relationships? Because I have around
Yes,
me a lot of people who are
yes,
single and who don't
yeah.
know how to find someone great. And I keep telling them, be someone great. You're going to find someone great. I keep helping them focus on themselves again so that they understand that
Mm,
because you vibrate that in the world. It's just if it's like if you married yourself, someone else will want to marry you because you're so cool. it's it's just that's how it works. And why do you think there are so many people today which are isolated? I feel that they don't know how to connect with others, and they don't know how to nurture beautiful relationships.
hmm.
Does it change something for a relationship to do this work? Because you don't really tap into it in
I
the
mean,
book.
I have. I
But
mean, yeah,
what happens? Do
yeah,
you
I
have
get those that have made their relation,
examples,
definitely made their
testimonials of
relationships better with
readers
their family,
who
with their
wrote
loved
you?
ones. It is when you're just more loving to yourself, you're more love. It just naturally comes out to others. You let things bounce off you easy. Stuff that would have bothered you from family, you're just like, just doesn't bother you anymore. Like imagine just in a relationship where you get irritated. We no longer get irritated. What would happen in that relationship because you're not giving that irritation response to the other person, right? Just that shift alone. So a lot of that stuff happens naturally. I mean, look, in the modern day, we're also isolated anyway. We're more connected than ever, and we're more isolated than ever. Um, but I think in anything, your answer is by far the one I believe in. You go be awesome. Like honestly, I'm lazy. I much prefer to attract than chase. It's always more fun when you attract than chase. And how do you attract? You attract by being awesome. You just look at yourself like I know when I was younger, like one of the things I did was, okay, I'm gonna be in awesome shape. And I did it, for whatever reasons, from childhood stuff that no one's going to mess with me as a man or whatever, right? But also at some point, I saw that women were really drawn to that, and then it became like a whole thing, right? It's like just go be better in whatever the things you're insecure. Oh, what you're insecure about? Go be better in that. Knock that out. You know, um, and also like when we do that, our confidence goes up. Our confidence in ourselves. People always ask, like, I'd run into people like, how to become more confident? Simple. Make commitments to yourself, keep them. Step up higher to yourself, step up higher to yourself. You start to trust yourself. When someone who trusts themselves, you can feel it the way they walk. You're drawn to those people. You are. It's just like there's no doubt about it, right? Maybe because I don't see a lot of that, you know. But that's the magic trick. Again, it requires you doing the work, you know. And also, something I learned in relationships, I used to like give up too much of myself in a relationship. I used to like put the other person on a pedestal, not me. And how do you think those always worked out? Yeah, and like and the other person who was drawn to you for a particular reason is less drawn to you now if you just put them on a
You dilute
pedestal.
yourself.
Versus like, look, I'm awesome, you're awesome, same, that's that. And so like I think the answer is always just working on bettering yourself. It's the one lifelong thread. Like pick the things and always start with the inner because the inner, controls everything. Um, but yeah, your answer was spot on. You become that person. That is the answer. Yeah. Yeah. And also enjoy the singlehood time because there's things you can do you won't be able to do in your relationship. Enjoy the heck out of it, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. Thank you.
And yeah, enjoy both. I mean, like, it's always like you talk to people, they always like complain about the
Yeah.
grass on the other side, but
Make the
so just
most of it.
enjoy both.
Yeah.
Make the most out of both.
Yeah.
Single, do the stuff you can do single that you can't do when you're in a relationship or is harder to do.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Mm.
I have one more question about freedom. Freedom and
I know.
commitment.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I
Yeah, yeah,
noticed
yeah.
that too, that
I
a lot
love
of people
Bali.
around me
Yeah.
loves the freedom. Also, I live in
Yeah.
Bali. People are a little bit like floaty and enjoying living in the moment
Mm.
and making the most of the moment. I love it too. But I see that they're not going very far in life, or they're not achieving what they dream of achieving because they're not committing. What's your relationship to freedom and staying free on a daily basis of your schedule, of
Hmm.
your choices, but also committing to long-term
That's a
projects
great
as an
question.
entrepreneur, as a writer? It
Um,
takes a lot of efforts and dedication. How do you navigate both?
I've done both at the same time, but they require focus. Like, okay, I've done lived in the Caribbean, just kite surfing, chill, like la vida loca, but every day from this time to this time, working on my book. I'm writing a novel, you know. I'm not wasting my time. I'm enjoying myself, but I lived in the Caribbean, Dominican Republic for almost a year. And one thing I noticed was it was a beautiful life. It was a great, oh my God, such a great life. But I noticed people who've been there for a few years, you could see like a fear build up behind their eyes. It was like you wake up, 1 year's gone. You wake up, 1 year's gone. You wake up and all of a sudden you're 10 years older. And they were terrified to come back to the real world. And then they were running out of money and doing odd jobs or anything to just stay there to avoid going back to the real world. Or for me, my thing is always like wherever you are, enjoy it, but don't waste that time. Like carve yourself that in that day. And that comes from having freedom, right? Carve yourself that time in that day. That's for that. And then enjoy the heck out of the freedom, you know? Um, yeah, I think, yeah, and you have to find something you care about. Obviously, like it's easier to do that when I really cared about writing. So for me, that was like, I didn't have to force myself, but I did have to stick to a commitment because like they say deadlines are a writer's best friend because otherwise it would just dilly daddle and this and that and right, yeah, look at it as constraints are actually a
Oh,
gift.
yeah.
One thing I
Oh, I
think we
know.
forget is that we think only 100% freedom. If we did only 100% freedom, I'd sit around, watch TV all day with my dog, and I would eat pizza and I would do this full on freedom, right? I do none of that, right? Because the constraints I give myself in my diet, the constraints I give myself in my exercise, the constraints I give myself in my little TV time at night, which is like my unwind time, right? That make me who I want to be. And they get me ahead in life and where I want to be. So the constraints are actually a gift, and then you enjoy the relish the freedom. Like I was in Japan for 3 weeks and I allowed myself to like part of it just completely tune out and just wander around Kyoto for days and days and days, just drinking matcha everywhere, like freedom, right? But then you got to get back. Hey, I like making money. I got to go like, do this and do that. Um, but constraints are actually, Jocko's thing, discipline equals freedom. He's really nailed it. I think constraints are actually a gift you give yourself. As a writer, you got to give yourself constraints. As in fitness and diet, in anything, you got to give yourself constraints. Otherwise, you just let loose and you're just living like a hog. And so I think that's very important to remember that putting constraints on ourselves that are for something that's meaningful to us is a gift to ourselves. I hope that makes sense. Oh, my pleasure. Oh, this was great.
Yeah, totally. I love it. Thank you.
Anything I want to
Thank you
add?
so much for everything.
No, if
Yeah.
you read the
Is
book,
there anything you want to add?
message me on the socials, say hi. Um, one thing I've started doing more also with the practice is
Yeah.
when I go to sleep. And this I actually got from reading like stuff written in the 1920s in the New Thought movement, uh, after I wrote Love Yourself, about just layering in stuff into the subconscious. And sleep, when you go falling asleep, you're basically in a very hypnotic, self-hypnotic state. And the one of the best things you can do is pay attention to your thoughts and your emotions when you're sleeping. Like, make them great. Fall asleep feeling great about yourself. Fall asleep feeling love for yourself, even if you don't believe it. Your feelings. We can all manufacture our feelings. Okay, we do anyway, right? Feel great things when you're falling asleep. Just every time you fall asleep, feel great. I promise you, you're gonna see the results of that in your life. It does, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. That works. I usually have post-its by my bed, and I write something on the post-it before I fall asleep. I write,
Mm-hmm.
I fake it until I make it in a way, because I write to the universe, to God. I say, thank you for the beautiful
Ah,
relationship, my perfect
nice.
health. Thank you for the money coming my way this month. Thank you for all the things. And then I put it under my pillow and I fall asleep like this. And I'm like, okay, it is done. I don't need to take care of
Yeah,
everything.
and you're
I'm
falling asleep in that
I'm just
feeling.
connected to this energy,
You're
and I
creating
choose
that
to
feeling
welcome
within
more
yourself
of
with
it
that
in my
ritual.
life.
And it's a beautiful
And that
ritual.
works.
Like, it's so smart to create a ritual like that.
Yes.
And then so like it centers you into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, thank you
Hmm.
for everything, Kamal. I will put your links in the description so people can
No,
find easily your
no,
book and
no,
also your
no, 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 no.
Instagram.
Look,
And do you have
I've
anything
been
else
offered a
that you
lot for
offer?
doing
That
courses
you
and
do
all
you
this stuff,
coach?
but look, the book is
Do
so
you do anything
pure.
else? No?
You just need to read the book and apply it. Like, you don't need me to hold your hand through it and then charge you a bunch of money for it. You just don't
Yeah.
need it. Yeah, I wrote it that way that anyone can, and just try it. Just give yourself, a month. It's not a long
Mm-hmm.
time. You've been here for a lot of months. Anyone who's watching, you've been here for a lot of months. Give yourself a month, right? And watch, and it's your life. Make it a marvel inside your head, and then it'll be marvel outside your head. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
You are in.
Yeah.
You
It's
are
also
actually, you're right. I've never
sovereignty.
thought of it that way.
It's
But
going back to your
you're the
sovereignty.
one who's in
Yeah.
charge of this show inside. It's your show and you own it. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
What did I do?
Yeah. Did you just make a Did you see? Something was on the screen
It
that
was a
you had
pleasure.
a this on the screen. I don't know how it happened. Okay, I love it. Thank you for everything, Kamal. Thank, thank you. And thank you to everyone who listened to us today. Please share this episode if you've enjoyed it and give it 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I'll see you in another episode next time. Bye bye.